My friends, risk tolerance questionnaires and risk tolerance software are like the drug dealer of financial planning. They might make you and your clients feel really good, but at the end of the day, they are frying your brains. And in this video, I'm going to go through 3 reasons why I despise risk tolerance questionnaires and what you can do instead. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matthew Jarvis. I built a $2 million a year practice working just 6 months out of the year, and I recently sold that in an 8-figure deal. And now I make videos like these to help other financial advisors meet or even hopefully exceed my success. So here are the 3 reasons why I despise risk tolerance questionnaires, and I think that no one should use them. Reason number 1, the whole premise of a risk tolerance questionnaire is asking a client how they will feel in a certain imagined situation. There are questions like, imagine the market goes down 20%, how will you react? Or how far will the market have to go down before you feel bad? Why is this a problem? Well, problem number 1 is that if you've done any study on psychology, how you frame the question and what happened immediately preceding the question will dramatically change the client's answer. Things as simple as how warm is it in the room? Or did you talk about something positive or negative that day? Or is the market up or down? So these answers are wildly inaccurate. It's sort of like asking someone like, hey, what do you feel like eating today? And you use that answer to make lifetime financial decisions. Like that's the equivalent amount of accuracy. If I said, hey, what would you like to have for dinner tonight? And they said, well, Mexican sounds good. And I said, all right, well, because you asked for Mexican food, we're going to do a 70-30 allocation. Like that's the equal level of absurdity. But that's not even why it bothers me so much. By asking clients how they will feel or how they will respond to a feeling, we're setting them up for failure. I never want a client to make financial decisions based on how they feel in the moment. I want them to always make financial decisions based on their long-term goals and how this action will help them get closer to their goal or further from that. So reason number 1 is I don't want to train clients on making feeling-based responses. Reason number 2, and I sort of alluded to this, is that risk tolerance questionnaires ignore the client's goals. So how should this be framed instead? If a client wants to have a very conservative portfolio and we say, well, that's great, we can keep everything in bonds, but instead of getting $100,000 a year in income, you'll only get $70,000 a year in income, which means instead of being able to take 3 trips a year, you won't be able to take any trips a year. Now we're translating this into something that matters to them. Right? So we're saying, hey, listen, your goal is to have a $5,000 a month of income, or your goal is to be retired for 30 years, or your goal is to buy this property. Let's make financial decisions based on achieving the goal. Now, my friends, this doesn't mean we're ignoring volatility, but we're tying volatility and risk in general to what the client is trying to accomplish, not what some arbitrary software program has spit out. Number 3 reason I don't like risk tolerance questionnaires is it completely ignores the cost of risk avoidance. So sometimes they'll have these scenarios like, would you like an investment that could go up 8%, but it could go down 20%? Or would you rather have an investment that could go up 10%, but it might go down 40%? None of this is tied to goals. So what would be a better way to articulate this? Mr. and Mrs. Client, if we have a 5-year buffer, so 5 years worth of income in cash or bonds, you can take out X dollars a month. But if you say, well, I want more than 5 years of buffer, I want 7 years of buffer, I want 10 years of buffer, great, that means we must take out a lower amount. In other words, we're not saying like there's this imaginary magical risk bucket where we can say, yeah, I'll have my cake and eat it too. Like I want to eat ice cream every day and have a 6-pack abs. We're letting them know what those trade-offs are. And so those are the reasons why I don't use risk tolerance questionnaires. And as I alluded throughout this video, what I do use instead is saying how many years of buffer do we need? In other words, if the client is concerned about tariffs or the political situation or interest rates or the Federal Reserve or whatever apocalypse comes next, I can ask them, I say, how many years do you think it will take to work this thing out? Well, I think it'll take 2 years. I think it'll take 3 years. Or sometimes they won't know and I'll give them some perspective. And I'll say, hey, do you remember the financial crisis of 2008? Now, it's been quite a while, by the way, since the 2008 financial crisis. Like we're coming up on, 15 years or something like that. More than that. It's been quite a while. And so I let them know, I say, hey, as you may remember, the market started going down in 2007. So I'll put finger up number 1, 2007. And they went down like a rock in 2008. And in 2009, they kept going down. But towards the end of 2009, they started turning back around. Then we have 2010 and 2011. So We had 5 years there. Now, in 2011 or 2012, depending on how you count, was the market back to where it was at in 2007? No, not at all. It wasn't even close. However, did we get past the worst of it? Yes, we certainly did. Same with the tech bubble in 2000, 2001. Same with the COVID crisis. Same with basically any decline that we can see in history. Will 5 years get us completely out of the woods? No, but it will cover the worst of it. Most clients, once they hear risk articulated in that fashion, are totally fine with it. Some will say, boy, that's not quite enough. Okay, cool. How many years would you like? If they say I had like 6 years, all right, no big deal. That goes from a 75-25 to a 70-30. No big deal. We can handle that. If the client says, boy, I don't know, this one's going to take a long time. Like we need a 10-year buffer. We need a 20-year buffer. Well, at some point, that buffer is going to be so big that the client won't have any growth to recover. That's where we go back to this trade-off and say, great, we can have a 10-year buffer or a 15-year buffer, but here's what it means to your income. Here's what it means to your goals versus saying, hey, your risk tolerance score is an 83.2 versus an 80.1. So my friends, focus on risk in the context of goals and not in the context of some meaningless questionnaire. And until next time, happy planning.